Hello everyone and welcome to the show. We are more than halfway through as today's video is part 6 of my 9-part video series where I dive into each of the 9 launch titles that were available for the Atari video computer system that was first introduced in September of 1977. Tank and Pong were the 2 games that the Atari 2600 was designed to play, so of course those 2 games were included in the launch titles. Tank was called Combat and was included with the console. Check out part 1 for my review of that game. Pong was the second and called Video Olympics. And that is the topic for today's video. Before we get started, if you like the videos, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons below, and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of new videos. It really helps out a small channel like this one, and is highly appreciated.
Anyone for Atari?
She beat me again?
The Atari video computer system is 20 cartridges with 1,300 game variations you play on your own TV set.
The first known Olympics was held in the summer of 776 BC at Olympia in ancient Greece. This site was a major religious sanctuary where the games were held every 4 years until the 4th century AD. The Olympics were of fundamental religious importance, featuring sporting events alongside ritual sacrifices honoring both Zeus and Pelopas, the divine and mythical king of Olympia. The athletic games consisted of combat sports such as boxing, wrestling, and chariot racing events. Olympia was also known for the gigantic statue of Zeus that was made from ivory and gold and resided in the Temple of Zeus. The statue was made by Phidias, a Greek sculptor and architect who also made the statue of Athena Parthenos, which used to be inside the Parthenon. His statue of Zeus at Olympia was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Of those 7 wonders, only the pyramids still exist today. The Olympic Games were restored on a global basis in 1896 and first hosted in the Panathenaic Stadium in Athens, Greece. While Video Olympics doesn't include chariot racing or wrestling, it does have very loosely related versions of many sports in modern-day Olympics such as table tennis, soccer, handball, ice hockey, basketball, and volleyball. It also has more Pong versions than you can shake a stick at, including Classic Pong, Super Pong, Robot Pong, Pong Doubles, Quadra Pong, and Foos Pong. And that is the feature of this game, to combine a number of home arcade consoles and arcade Pong games into a single cartridge, and even include a new game like Foos Pong. Video Olympics was programmed by Joe Decker. While Joe also did some work on the other launch title Combat, his greatest contribution was the implementation and hardware testing of the Atari 2600. The artwork was done once again by Cliff Spahn. When interviewed in the Art of Atari book, he talked about this artwork. He brought everything in this montage together with carry-through lines and wanted to show blurring balls and motion lines. As with previous games, Sears rebranded this as Pong Sports. As uncreative as this title is, I will say that I think it is a much better name for this game. If you remember, Sears renamed the last cartridge from Street Racer to Speedway 2 after their standalone Pong consoles. The same goes here, with Sears Telegame's Pong Sports 2 and Pong Sports 4 consoles for 2 and 4 players. The cartridge is a collection of games from Atari's popular arcade Pong series. A similar collection in arcade machine form called Tournament Table was published by Atari in 1978. The games are for 1 to 4 players and use the paddle controllers. 3 and 4 player games require a second set of paddles. Pong is a table tennis-themed sports video game featuring simple 2-dimensional graphics. It was manufactured by Atari and originally released in 1972 and was one of the first arcade video games. You can't overstate the importance of Pong in video game history. Not only was it wildly successful in the arcade arena, but it literally started the home console business. After producing Computer Space, Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney decided to form a company to produce video games. They hired Alan Alcorn because of his experience with electrical engineering and computer science. Bushnell had originally planned to develop a driving video game like Speedway, however, thought it might be too complicated for Alcorn's first game. As a secret warm-up exercise, Bushnell asked Alcorn to create a simple game with one moving spot, two paddles, and digits for a score. This would be based on a Magnavox Odyssey table tennis game which Bushnell had seen at the 1972 Magnavox Profit Caravan. In response to the game, Magnavox later sued Atari for patent infringement. They settled, and Magnavox gave Atari an exclusive license to reproduce the game. Based on his knowledge of transistor-to-transistor logic, Alcorn made the basic game and added additional features to give the game more appeal, such as varying angles of return, a constantly accelerating ball, and what was initially a bug, paddles that were unable to reach the top of the screen. The prototype impressed Bushnell and Dabney so much they thought it could be a profitable product. In August 1972, Bushnell and Alcorn installed the Pong prototype at a local bar, Andy Capp's Tavern. The game was well received the first night, and its popularity continued to grow over the next few weeks. In fact, people came to the bar solely to play the game. However, the prototype began exhibiting technical issues, and they contacted Alcorn to fix it. Upon inspecting the machine, he discovered the problem was that the coin mechanism was overflowing with quarters and had jammed up the coin slot. And that is the story of Pong. In all the 50 variations on this cartridge, the first player to 21 wins. The ball can behave in 4 different ways, and these are sprinkled throughout the 50 variations. The most common ball behavior is speed. Pressing the button when your ball makes contact with the paddle will speed up the ball. This also happens naturally the longer the ball is in play. The second behavior is called whammy, and it adds a sharper angle to the ball while the button is pressed. This one is good to use against the computer opponent. Catch does exactly as you would expect. The paddle holds the ball each hit, allowing you to aim the ball. The last behavior is jump and is only used for the volleyball and basketball games. Pressing the button here allows a rapid jump of the paddle from the bottom to the middle of the screen. So the first 8 variations are classic Pong. The first 2 games are the only one-player versions on this cartridge, which were thankfully added. Most Pong games at the time required at least 2 players. The robotic player here is not too bad. It's on the left side of the screen and is in orange. About the colors. The color scheme for this is horrible. Early Atari games had the bad habit of splashing mismatched colors all over the screen. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. Stay tuned when I talk about the hacks. The robot's movement speeds up as the ball increases in speed, but with a judicial use of the whammy, you can get the ball past him. The remaining 6 variations of Pong are 2- and 4-player versions. The 4-player variation is a port of the arcade game Pong Doubles. Variations 9 through 12 are called Super Pong, which is simply 2 or 4 players each controlling 2 sets of paddles. Super Pong is a port of the home console Super Pong. The next 6 variations are called soccer. Here you need to hit the ball into the opposing goal on the opposite side of the screen. At least the colors here are more appropriate and resemble a soccer field. Soccer was a very common variant of Pong found in arcade and standalone consoles by other publishers, who usually just called it hockey. Variations 19 through 22 are 2- and 4-player versions of Pong, which is the one unique game on this cartridge. It plays very much like a Pong table where each player controls 2 rows of 3 paddles. The tricky part here is that your vertical movement is restricted, just like in the table game. Hockey comprises the next 10 variations on this cartridge. It's very much like the soccer game, except the goals are moved forward and on an enclosed screen. Again, the colors here are okay, as it resembles an ice hockey rink. Hockey is a port of the hockey game from the Ultra Pong home console. The next 2 variations are called Quadra-Pong. These are for 4 players working as 2-player teams. Each player covers their own goal, but be careful, you can score against your teammate. Quadra-Pong is a port of the arcade game Quadra-Pong by Atari, which is also called Elimination by Key Games. Variations 35 through 38 are handball and are for 2 or 4 players. It plays like regular handball, with the players' turns handled by blinking or solid paddles. This is a port of the handball game from the Super Pong Pro-Am console. The last 12 games on here are really pushing it for valid Pong games. They have tried to make it more interesting by adding a jump feature where you can bump your paddle up to the middle of the screen by pressing the action button. Each comes in 2 or 4-player variations. In volleyball, you are trying to hit the ball over the net. This is a port of the arcade game Rebound by Atari and Spike by Key Games. The basketball variations are definitely the weakest games on here. The object here is to make a basket on the goal opposite the player. Basketball is a port of the basketball game from the Atari console Video Pinball. It sounds a little unusual, but this console has 3 games: pinball, basketball, and breakout. Here you go. That is the 50 variations on this cartridge. They really seem to be pushing the Pong concept for some of these variations, but they all seem to be based on previous consoles and arcade games, so there must have been an audience for some of them. It still surprises me how many games they were able to stuff into 2K, which is the size of all the launch titles. I found 3 noteworthy hacks on Video Olympics. The first one was done by Neo Tokyo and simply makes the background black for the classic Pong variations. This makes it resemble the arcade a little closer and is much better than the rust-colored background. The second hack activates the robot for every variation. Kurt Howe looked into the code and found it was just a simple bit flag that set the left player to the robot. And finally, Omega Matrix added a menu system, which makes it much easier to find the game you want without thumbing through the manual to find out which each variation number corresponds to. These are all available free on the Atari Age website if you wanted to check them out. I'll put some links in the description. Speaking of comments, let me know what you think of this video. This one has taken quite a bit of time and research. Let me know if you enjoy the deep dive into the history or more just looking for gameplay. It will help me shape further videos. Comment below with your preferences and any other thoughts you may have. I read each and every comment. Also let me know if you've played this one before. How many of the variants have you played? Before this video, I never went much past the robotic Pong. That's it for this video. Take care, guys.